Let me tell you a little story about leadership, okay? A certain person called Martin Ødegaard has been put forward as someone who's maybe not the right leader for Arsenal. This Arsenal side, of course, have just beaten Manchester City 5-1. Absolutely walloped them. We're going to go through the goals. We're going to talk about the tactical decisions that were made and how they could have worked out, but ultimately certainly didn't work out for Man City. But let's start off with that story, because this is 1 minute into the game. 1 minute into a huge game. And about 20 minutes prior to this, Thierry Henry, who I consider to be an absolute god, he said Martin Ødegaard used to run the show, and now he doesn't. And it was part of a wider point about how Arteta's teams are more nervous about losing games than winning games, which is interesting in itself. And I think in this video, there'll be a lot of two things being true here, because mistakes were made, but when you look at it in the round, I think you can really, really see the difference between a bad tactical decision and bad decisions from players. And that's what happened a lot for Manchester City, but they kind of played into Arsenal's hands. But let's talk leadership, because here's Martin Ødegaard. 1 minute 15. Let's move it along. Then you see this is 1 minute 19. Where is he? He's here, pressing like a demon, leading the team up. If you think of the rest of the team, no one's really anywhere near him. We move it on. Now you've got two in there. The whole team is backing him up, but he is leading, quite literally, the charge. That's 1 minute 21. The ball then has to be played backwards. They're in the ascendancy here without even touching the ball at this stage. From their own half, now Ødegaard goes again. Stones has to play backwards. I'm going to show you the passing networks of both these teams, and it will be so clear to you what a huge problem was for Manchester City. But this is probably one of the best off-the-ball teams in world football. Surely. You know, the goal difference tells that, and I know there's a lot of anger about or dispute about how good they are going forward, but in certain games, styles make fights. You know, look at Brighton, Nottingham Forest. And this one is one where now Arteta kind of has it on him. And it's because of players like Martin Ødegaard. We'll go through the whole team lineup. He's had to go all the way back here. He then gets the ball back. And actually, Ødegaard starts in this position here. And then does what? He's on it. He is on it all the time. The lad runs non-stop. Is that the only part of being a great player? Absolutely not. But it is a part of it, and it was a huge difference between these two teams. And because of that press, Stones has to play a slightly risky pass to try and get through it. Could he have made a different decision? We'll come back to that. But all of that, and that knowing that that pass is coming so Trossard can go as well. Yes, the whole team is backing him up. Martin had done it previously. But it starts with this man here, Martin Ødegaard. Move it forward. What happens? Akanji makes a horrible mistake. And of course, it's always more than one mistake that leads to a goal. But it's being led by Ødegaard. A few seconds later, the boys scored a goal. Now, as much as Ødegaard was superb for that first goal, and it sets the tone, it gives them the game state, the control, there's something else that's huge in this theme that I'm running through of two things being true and two things being a part to play in the fact that Arsenal were able to destroy Man City. Can you see it? I'll give you 2 seconds. We'll come back to this. Let's talk about the tactics and the teams, because I thought that was really, really interesting. And what Guardiola did, it was one where I applauded it, but the execution of it really, really played into Arsenal hands, in my opinion. Let's run through the lineups, because what you saw on paper at the start of it was absolutely not what we saw once the game took place. And I thought it was quite revealing in terms of the tactical idea of which Guardiola was putting forward. So on paper, you had a back four, Gvardiol, Stones, Akanji, and Núñez. You then had a double pivot of Silva and Kovacic, a sort of three next to Long in Marmoush, who we obviously expected to drift over to this side. Foden on the right and Savio, and then Haaland up top. But what actually came to be was something very different. It actually turned into a bit of a sort of a three at the back, actually. Foden was stepping into this area, and Marmoush was also a huge part of what they were trying to do. Because Núñez was playing higher up, Kanji coming here, Stones kind of being the bit of a quarterback for the team, let's say, and Gvardiol in almost a back three. If we just draw it, there you go, there's your three. Then that double pivot here was actually not that at all, especially with the ball. Kovacic was that single pivot. And we'll see that from the second goal and how that was a problem. But the reason it was a problem was not because of Kovacic, in my opinion. It was because of decisions. Decisions throughout what I thought were really, really poor. But with the ball, Silva would trot into this area here. And the reason for that was this. Because the Arsenal team, as you can see, three in midfield, Trossard out wide, Martinelli out wide, and Havertz. Of course, without the ball is very different. I've just shown you how brilliant Ødegaard is, and he's brilliant within a medium block 4-4-2. And so when Man City had the ball, that meant that they had 1, 2 in Marmoush, Silva, 3, Foden, and Núñez. And so why did they do that? Well, I think for the first time, and we've not seen this in a very long time, they actually wanted to completely overload the midfield. They wanted Silva to kind of keep Thomas Partey and Rice honest, but also Marmoush to work down the side of Partey here in this channel, and Foden work down this side of Rice. But what's difficult there is when you put someone like Silva in the middle of it all, it kind of freezes these two in Rice and Partey. That is what I believe was the idea here. And even Kovacic himself would sort of step forward, Stones would step here, Gvardiol here, Kanji here. But two players I thought kind of let themselves down in this. And it was Stones, it was a Kanji, but it was Kovacic too in terms of being brave on the ball and playing the ball forward. Because if you're going to commit someone like Silva there, to have that overload as a group after that second layer, when we're talking about the press, you've got this first layer here, then this second layer here, and then you're onto your third layer here. If you're going to try and do that, play the ball forward. Because that first goal that we were talking about right at the start of the video here, this is where the little quiz, we get the answers. So two people that I think are really important here, of course, actually three. John Stones got the ball. But look at Ortega. He's pointing. Where is he pointing? He's pointing at Bernardo Silva. You've got Kovacic here, sort of sitting in that single pivot. But of course, with the press being as strong as it is, you need someone else to help overload that. And actually, that's exactly what Bernardo Silva is doing. So one route for John Stones would have been play the ball straight, play the ball forward. Is that down to Ødegaard rushing him by curving that run and just putting that energy on him? Very possibly. Maybe it's early in the game, and maybe because of him being right-footed and the way that he's facing, he just sees that pass and he's brave enough and got the quality to do that. Fair enough. Second thing I spotted was this. Look at Gvardiol. What's Gvardiol saying? Gvardiol's saying, "Fucking long, son." And the reason for that was because of what they were looking to do. They were looking to go through this area here, I thought, Man City. They wanted to play through the middle of the pitch. And that's why they had Marmoush. And that's why they had Foden in those half spaces. You've got Haaland to help out as well. And that's why Gvardiol's saying exactly that. He's saying, just wrap your foot around it, mate. Don't worry about it. Because we've got one player here. Or if you can get it to Haaland, fine. Or if it doesn't work out, we sort of reset and start again. But don't lose the ball in dangerous, odd areas. And that was something that happened time and time again, where the opportunity was there for the movement, but the forward pass wasn't played at the right time. Or on another occasion, they would play the pass and it would just get cut out. And when we come back to the tactics board here, you can see when you've got the ball, be it Kovacic or Stones, regardless of that front two, when you've got 3 against 2 in the middle there, and even if Silva sort of drops out of it, you've still got these two here looking to sort of hurt Saliba and Partey and peeling on the outsides of Partey and Rice. The pass was never played directly enough for me, or quickly enough for me. And when you don't do that and you don't get it right, what happens? You leave massive spaces for the opposition to exploit. And that's what happened time and again. So it really was one of two separate things here of Man City playing poorly, but also playing centrally. And so when they did that and committing bodies forward, every time Arsenal won the ball, they were able to attack with pace into space. And Man City couldn't really deal with it. Now, it's definitely one of those days where it absolutely worked for them and things went their way. But at the same time, I thought Man City they kind of held their own destiny in their own hands if they just saw the pass that little bit quicker. And time and again, they didn't. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Bernardo Silva right here in the middle, Foden and Marmoush. They've got the ball here. They're comfortable. And Kovacic and Stones just weren't quick enough with playing the ball forward. But they also weren't seeing the space. There is that channel right here ready to go. Timber's a little bit nervous, in fact. He's actually pushing on him here. But time and again, that sort of directness that everyone was talking about last week, they didn't take their own advice. They weren't direct enough, and they should have been, because the movement was absolutely there. Let me show you an example of it. Here's one example of it. Marmoush making that run. Hit the ball. Play the pass. You're all on your own here. You've got all these guys, and you're essentially overloading this entire area. Hit those areas. Hit that channel. You've got players in those half spaces. Use them. Didn't happen. Here's another example. This is a simple pass that Guardiola plays here. Marmoush making a great run into this channel. Tim's trying to get here. All he's got to do, just spin it in. Just spin it in behind. Oof, can I? There we go. Spin it in behind. And you've got that whole space to go and attack. But Man City kind of caught between two identities here, where you're committing those bodies forward, you are creating those spaces, and you've got someone like Marmoush, who's a willing runner, someone like Foden, who was a willing runner, but they just didn't play that pass. Instead, Xavi on this occasion came back and just didn't kind of commit to what he was doing. And you can see that in the passing networks, because here we go with Man City. Look how many times, look how thick the line is here in terms of the left centre-back in Stones having to go back to his goalkeeper time and again. There was another great moment where Havertz, of course, misses that chance, and it's one where Ortega, instead of playing it direct and going long, because you've got all those bodies up there, he actually tries to play a stupid little pass into Kovacic here, and they get done there. But for a team that had these players here, in these areas, the lack of passing to those players is a massive problem. Massive problem. Where that was the game plan that they had, but they didn't really commit to it, and therefore Haaland was regularly isolated. One thing that they did do is they sort of came out and spoke about this at halftime. I really believe that Guardiola was going like, stop messing about here, guys. We've committed to this tactical plan. Pass the ball. And actually, we saw it. We saw it straight after. You had two players and actually even committing another body forward, and they played that pass. And from there, it led to something. Because that pass led to a little pass. And this is all dangerous stuff when you've got all these bodies around him and, of course, this gargantuan amount of space in behind. And as the game progressed, the amount of times they won the ball and got into these areas was a problem. But this was one of the few moments where they played it through, punched it through. And once they did that, it then led to a ball from Kovacic to Foden to Haaland to Marmoush. And they were through. And actually, again, that idea of sort of play that pass, but go into the space and be direct and play the ball forward is actually how they got themselves back into the game. This is fantastic stuff from Savio. It's a lovely pass, switching the play to Núñez. And the reason they were playing Foden and Marmoush and playing this way is that I don't think they really felt that in Núñez, they're going to get much, really, in terms of he's not really going to beat his man and do that much. But this is really nice from Savio, because if you focus on him, and no one really will, because of course they lost the game, he plays this long pass and then he actually carries on his run. Núñez does what you would expect. He's never going to go this way. He's going to come back and play it back. So he does. He plays it to Foden. But look at Savio here. It's a great little run here. So this, this isn't a bad team. But out of possession, that's where this game was won. And that's where Man City are absolutely miles off it. But it's about that run and then play the ball forwards and play it when you see it. He does it. It's a beautiful turn. And then it's a beautiful cross as well. And Haaland does what Haaland does. Staying humble all the while, or he gets humble, doesn't he, as time progresses, and they get their goal. But it was Arsenal's day, and the response was really, really good. And as I say, this game was about decisions in possession, in terms of silly passes, the tactical gamble that Pep took that failed, and how Arsenal was so easily able to capitalise on it. Because I feel like Foden was feeling himself a little bit here. They just got the goal, and it was from playing the ball forward. They'd had a good spell in the match. But then Foden does something, and this is why it's risky to look to play through a team. You can play round, you can play through, you can go over. I think they should have gone over a little more often. But Foden had gone, wow, we've got something here from playing the ball forward. I think he's trying to play that pass again. And he certainly is, because he's trying to get the ball to Marmoush. But it's all about off-the-ball stuff. And every single one of these goals, John Stones is just completely stranded, hoping to block the ball. 2 of those were deflected for the goals. But he had no cover throughout the game. Here's another great example of it. Foden plays that pass and deserves to be kind of in trouble for that. But Kovacic is got to be one of the main men to help you. Bernardo Silva, the other person in that double pivot. And a ball gets played and cut out, and it's difficult. But if you know that you're going to have Haaland and Marmoush up the pitch at all times, these two can't be there. They've got to be here protecting the defence. And it's just disastrous off the ball, in my opinion. You can't have no one there. You just can't. It's a poor pass. I know he's trying to get to Marmoush, but there has to be someone here. Has to be. Because once he takes that touch, he's got forever. Now, yes, it's deflected and goes in. I get that. But there has to be some bodies in there. If you are going to look to play the ball through the centre of the pitch, you either have to be smart and work it and create the overloads and then punch that ball through. Or ultimately, you've got to have Kovacic or Bernardo Silva helping you out. And I thought that really, really hurt them when you've just got yourself back into the game. And then on to Lewis-Skelly. Now, he's a great player. A really great player. And I think the more games he gets, the more confidence he gets. What I would say is just be careful with this lad, because I think there are still sort of elements that aren't wholeheartedly refined. And I do think he's still in a place where he's learning. You know, he's a child, literally, isn't he? But the goal, people are going to talk about how brilliant he was. And he was fantastic. And he's, you know, for him to have that confidence, and obviously he's been told to do it, but to step up here and get involved, it's brilliant stuff. But I can't help, and Arsenal fans, you're probably going to get annoyed with me here. I can't help but just think, again, out of possession, which is the ugly side of the game, which Arsenal, again, I reiterate, are phenomenal at. The tenacity that they show. The fact that the likes of Ødegaard, he's their most tenacious player and he's their luxury player. That's a good sign for a team, I think. But the fact that, first of all, he's got this kind of space. What is going on again? Kovacic really sort of struggling and battling with it all. And those attacking players have got to get back and work a bit harder. But this is too easy. The ball works its way over to this side. He has ages. And then who's all on his own again? John Stones. Kovacic, is he seeing the danger here? It's so easy. The gaps, get tighter. Get goal side. Help your team. Have layers of defence there. It's 2-1. And Marmoush, he's your luxury player as well. But Ødegaard would have got back. I know he would have. Once he gets it, he's got time and space, but it's a great little turn and it's a great little goal. And do you know what, Lewis-Skelly? I'm going to give you a well done, son. Great moment, great goal for him. But Marmoush is nowhere to be seen. Stones is all on his own again. And even Kovacic is not with his man, is he? Could have laid it off if he wanted to. Defensively, they just don't have the legs. They just absolutely don't have the legs. And so if you don't have the legs, you better be smarter than the opposition. And your decisions have to be better. And that's where, when I've chucked it on Twitter, what do people think of the game? Some people are thinking, well, Man City weren't actually that bad and Arsenal weren't that good. And I think there's an element of truth in it, but there's 2 sides of the game. There's 3 sides of the game. There's transition, there's in possession, there's out of possession. And this team right now, out of possession, is drowning. They are, and they're playing in a way which I understand. They're leaning towards their skills, which is, we're better than you. We've got these great players, but they're making just bad decisions when they've got the ball as well. Scores the goal, wheels off, superb stuff. You could see Stones is absolutely fuming with the whole situation. And then this. I mean, good grief. Wow, we were. That is some brave stuff. And the world comes at you fast, doesn't it? And it's probably on Marmoush a little bit more. But sense it, see it. Go and help. Getting that early goal was absolutely huge for Arsenal, and we look at their passing networks, you can see it was the perfect kind of game for them. I thought a lot of the times Ødegaard stepped back into this area. Actually, so did Thomas Partey, actually probably even more, and you can see it there, the DM there, dropping deep, just to help so that they could go down the sides, the lovely, safe sides. no worries, because if you lose the ball in this area, as I'm about to show you, then you are able to attack with pace. And so there was a safety here in terms of building up, creating that overload, and then the ability to go around the sides. Ødegaard stepped in to do that as well. Havertz over on this right-hand side, which he's done previously against Man City, coming out to help from that side. You got Declan Rice on this side. And as a team, they work up the pitch generally really, really well. Not an outrageous amount of ability to sort of really like cut through Man City, but constant field tilt, constant pressure that they were building, and often a lot of the pressure that they were building came from Man City and their tactic, and it's one that I don't think Pep will be brave enough to have another go at. Here's an example of it. Foden here getting on the ball, and Man City looking pretty strong, aren't they, really, if you think about it? You know, you've got this whole line here, all the players, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, comfortable attacking against the opposition. Anything could happen, including giving the ball away. And so they're trying to be intricate and play those passes. Just a couple of seconds later, they look to play the pass through to Phil Foden, and Phil Foden loses the ball, and then they're all at sea. Once they got the ball, this time, instead of those intricate passes that you've seen from from Man City, Thomas Partey, he knows that they've got so much space, and in terms of the defence, 1, 2, that's kind of it, you know. You've got so many players that you're trying to get forward, and that means there's so much space. And this is where the third goal comes into it, and this is an interesting one as well. Is confidence at play here, and is it just one where in football sometimes you need it to go for you? Because in this scenario, I thought it was really interesting. So all of a sudden, absolutely struggling here. Loads of space. You got two guys with a bit of pace, and any defence is going to struggle in this scenario. What I thought was really interesting was how Havertz straight away went that way round, went for this overlap, because he's left-footed, remember? And if you're left-footed, I think if Havertz has more confidence, hasn't missed that sitter in the first half, I think he's okay with staying this way, or even peeling wide to peel this way, to be on the blind side of the defenders. But with Martinelli, what I thought was really interesting here was the fact that Martinelli is driving. Martinelli, of course, is right-footed. And when he sees Havertz here, actually, he should be taking the defender away for Martinelli to shoot. I don't think Martinelli's got an outrageous amount of confidence at the moment. And so he actually ends up passing the ball to him. I also think that Havertz made that run round so that he wouldn't get the ball, because he didn't want to have to take a shot from this area here with his right foot, as someone who's left-footed, and have to curl it into that corner. That's the wrong curl, isn't it? That's the one we wanted. So it's funny, isn't it? Because as it plays out, of course, he then drives this way for a little bit, and then he's thinking, how do I get it back onto my left foot? He does, of course, exactly that. And let's be honest, it's an absolutely stunning finish. Great finish. Exactly what he needed. And it speaks volumes for me. It really, really does. This is where Man City are at the moment. They're knackered. They're absolutely spent right now. That is the biggest problem that they have in transition and off the ball. 2 phases of the game. They are just really, really hurting right now. I'm giving Arsenal their flowers. I think it's not the sexy part of the game that we like talking about, so we don't want to focus on it enough. But Ødegaard absolutely led that team. That team had, as Declan Rice, the stomach for the fight. They pushed through, like Havertz said, in terms of the press, as a team, with tenacity. They wanted it. You know, so, as I say, styles win fights. And Arsenal's style, regardless of how you want to talk about it, and it's got nothing to do with corners, because none of these goals came from corners. Their style of play was way too much for this Man City team. Can that get them towards this Premier League title? I think most people would understand and be saying, no, I think Liverpool is still a little bit too good. But, you know, 2 games changes everything. And Arsenal will not go away. Absolutely will not be going away. Can they beat the other guys? And can they break them down? The other side of what Ødegaard needs to do. Can he create when he's playing against a team where there's no space up against him? Havertz, can he take those chances when you need him to? Speaking of which, we've done a video on Kai Havertz about his finishing. Go check that out. Let me know what you think, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. Hope you enjoyed this one. Speak to you soon.